from the oldest city in the USA, St. Augustine Tonight, with our guest, film producer Ward Clayton, journalist Jessica Clark, musical guest the Raisin Cake Orchestra, and special guests Nick Carrera and Lee Weaver, with your host Jorge Rivera.
Oh yeah, look at you, the house is packed, everyone is happy. Probably summer's coming, yes? Maybe. So once again, I want to thank the people who make this possible. I start with Mr. Theo Garrett of Garrett Brothers Home Decor. Oh yeah, baby. This set looks marvelous. The other person I'd love to thank is Dessert First Bistro, which is Mr. Sebastian Sikora. What a spread that man brought. God bless him. If you haven't been there, you know, he's by the Villano Bridge where the Kingfish Grill is, and on that strip down there, he has his place. His food is amazing. His desserts are incredible. So if you're ever in that area, you don't stop there. You're cheating yourself from a marvelous, marvelous lunch or breakfast. So I want to thank him too. Also, today is May the 16th. It is my son's birthday. Let's give him a hand. He lives in France with his mother, so I want to say to him, Joyeux anniversaire and bisson to him. Probably I killed that, but what I'm trying to say is happy birthday, my son. Love you. Let's sing him a happy birthday. Here we go. His name is Noah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Noah. Happy birthday to you. Oh yeah. He just turned 13. He watches the show on YouTube in France. You know, he knows the whole da. He knows. He just turned 13. 13. Oh God. You know, his mother. I'll send you postcards, darling. So that's wonderful. Something else I wanted to talk about today was Bezos' Blue Origin. He's really serious of putting on a permanent moon base. So he showed the lander, the moon lander, and he is determined to get a moon base permanent really soon. So pretty soon, you know, when what was his name? Cranston used to say, "To the moon, Alice." That will be possible without having to be physically violent. You can actually put her on a rocket and send her to the moon. So that's great. Another thing I saw, which was really, really amazing, in St. Petersburg, they have the Salvador Dali Museum. And what they just did, using artificial intelligence, they brought him back to life in the sense that he, as you go in the museum, there's like a door made out of glass, and there's a doorbell. When you ring the doorbell, you see through this glass door him sitting at the end, and he comes to greet you. What they did was they took all the photos and film of him and created him out of scratch, his voice, and using AI, they actually were able to create an algorithm that knew his basic thought process. This is the creepiest thing, but the coolest. So he comes and talks to you with his terrible Spanish accent. And he communicates and welcomes you to the museum. And he says that he's not dead. But the coolest thing about this is that when he's ready to say goodbye, he says, "Let's take a selfie." And he sticks his hand in his pocket. He shows you his phone. He turns around and takes a picture with you here. Then he shows it to you. Then he texts it to you to your phone. This is unbelievable, but you have him there. You have Dali alive on the other side of this glass. And it's not an actor, it's all created through artificial intelligence. So it's in St. Petersburg. It's not far from here. It's not like you got to go to Spain. So I found that incredible. An amusing story. You could just Google Salvador Dali AI and you could see the story on some internet something. Another thing that's really happening now that's really big is that they are now, human organs are being 3D printed. And they just created, using live material, an organ which was a lung that actually was breathing, circulating blood. They created the capillaries and everything. And it looks like they also created a tibia for a man who had a terrible disease and they had to take his leg, and they created a tibia. It's amazing where this is going. Pretty soon you'll order your organ on Amazon and it'll be delivered in 24 hours or less, and take it to your doctor and he'll take care of the rest. The last little piece of news I wanted to share with you was that, you know, those guys who do the ice cores in the Arctic and all that, and they can see what, they found that our CO2 level is the highest in 3 million years. And it seems that the story is more and more that it seems that we would need to go to zero emissions in 30 years, and everyone realizes that's impossible. So it's basically put on your seatbelt and brace yourself for what's coming. Last week I talked about 1 million species becoming extinct in the next 30 years, and it doesn't seem that anyone is really, you know, so we'll have to deal with it when it comes our way. I feel like the children of our future, ours was an age of prosperity, theirs will be an age of survival. And it'll mean their properties moving about, lots of things that are going to change. And so for our grandchildren, our children, the future looks like a challenge, and let's hope the best. Another thing is that those who believe that the earth is flat is growing in numbers. And they're convinced that every photo they've seen of planet Earth is a conspiracy. It's not really true. Those are all lies. And one has to laugh, and I'm waiting for Saturday Night Live to do a great sketch on that. And so, but we're not flat earthers here. We have a great show for you tonight. We have Ward Clayton with us. Let's give him a hand, film producer. We have also Nick Carrera from the Urban Asado. We're going to tell you what, if you like grilled meat, you're going to love this, okay? We have Jessica Clark. Now, Jessica Clark is giving the news, so we're projecting her on the screen, like Salvador Dali. But she will not take a selfie with you. And we have Lee Weaver, who's going to give us a little comedy relief. And we have, and oh, we love Lee. And we have an incredible musical guest. I saw them at the Dog Rose, and I was just enchanted by them. They were so gracious to be part of our show. It is the Raisin Cake Orchestra, and they're going to play for you right now.
as an associate, we can help you with many things. Number one is income for life throughout your retirement, which is very important. Number two would be Medicare choices, which are very confusing. Number three is a legacy for your loved ones. And finally, keeping you independent throughout retirement. My name is Tuli Martinez. Call this number y hablamos español.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Let's give that Raisin Cake Orchestra another hand. They were just, they were kick. Oh, wow. Like they say in the hood, they're sick. They're sick. Oh, yeah, very good, very good. My guest here is Mr. Ward Clayton, and he's been a friend now for a while, but Ward does a lot of things, and I brought him here because he's part of an incredible project. It's more than a project, it's a film, and it's called Loopers. But before we get to that, let's get to know him a little bit. So you were born and raised where?
North Carolina. Yeah, my accent doesn't tell that, does it?
Now, you spend most of your childhood in...
Yeah, right in Durham, North Carolina, I did, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, right in the center of the state, yep.
And so you eventually went to school there?
I grew up in the shadow of Duke University and then saw the light and went to school at the University of North Carolina. Yep, yep.
That college rivalry, I love it. And so what did you study there?
I studied journalism.
Oh, wow.
Yep, yep.
Okay. So, and did you specialize in a certain field of it, or were you gravitated?
I always liked to write. So I grew up playing all sports, but I was more interested in why somebody did something versus how much they scored. I wanted to know who Jorge Rivera was, for example, what his background was, what led him to be inspired to play. So I was always trying to find the person behind the uniform, so to speak.
Was there any of those personalities that you interviewed or wrote about that you still remember because their story was so special when you think back?
The best quote I've ever gotten was from a high school kid.
Huh.
I was in college, and he made 2 free throws with no time left to play. His team was down by 1. He made both of them. Wow. So if you ever covered a high school game, the kids are, anytime the media is there, they're going to be pretty attentive to that. So I'll go in the locker room after the game, and the kid's name, I'll never forget, his name was Willie Poole.
Willie Poole.
Willie Poole. So I go in, and this coach says, this guy from the newspaper wants to talk to you. So I said, Willie, you know, no time left, your team's down by 1 point, you got 2 free throws, you know, did you feel nervous? And all his teammates are doing like this, and Willie looks at me and says, you saw him go in, didn't you? I said, thanks, Willie, that's all I need, and I left.
Oh,
he was just confident, and that was the greatest quote I've ever gotten. High school kid, all the kids were laughing because of what he said, but it was awesome.
Yeah. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
That's great. So you were basically at the beginning with newspapers and magazines when you started working?
Yes, newspapers. I was always intrigued with what happened on a daily basis to try to put it into words, you know, because video wasn't, except for the local TV station, wasn't as prevalent at that time.
Right.
Yep.
So you worked for the local paper when you started in that area?
Mostly local papers, yes.
And then from there you went to?
I worked for the PGA Tour for 10 years in communications.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And so you met all the good guys there, all the big ones.
I was there when Tiger Woods became a big thing, and so here he is 20-some years later and has returned to form.
How do you feel about that?
If you have any interest in golf or any interest in a redemption story, that's heartwarming.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
I felt that the gods had punished him enough. Give the guy a break. And to see him putting on that green jacket, I got sentimental when I saw his boy, hugging him like his father when he, that was very, people could relate to that.
No doubt, no doubt.
Sometimes I feel in our society you commit a mistake and you go to this eternal hell, and I figure, isn't there redemption? Well, most people are Christians. What about forgiveness,
Right.
And so, give people a break because we're not perfect either. So that was wonderful. Any of those golfers that you met during those 10 years that impressed you, other than Tiger, that you thought were interesting personalities?
Well, my hero's always been Arnold Palmer, who's no longer with us. But the reason I was always impressed with him was his penchant for anybody looking them in the eye and shaking their hand, and made everybody feel like they were important. And one thing that I'll never forget, he said, if you ever look, most people's autographs, you can't tell them from anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
But his point, and he probably signed more autographs than anybody, but he always had perfect penmanship on his autograph. And he was asked why. It's because I want people to be able to read what I wrote. Which
makes
with my
sense.
name, so that was his advice to other golfers and athletes, is when you sign your name, make it so people will know who you are instead of just chicken scratch.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So now you're no longer with the PGA Tour, so what do you do now?
Local PR communications, mostly in the golf world. A lot of it in the arts here in St. Augustine. We helped promote Fernando Circus, who a lot of your folks may have gone and seen at the St. Augustine Amphitheater.
Amazing.
Some art shows at the St. Johns County Administration Building. We've had 3 of them where we hung art in the rotunda, which brought a nice, I think the commissioners really liked that.
Well, we had Anna Miller here, who was part of that. We had Suzanne Schunke, who was here also. The other person who wasn't here, incredible artist, Harry McCormick, which was I thought he was unbelievable. So, wow. So now you have this project, and it's called Loopers. Could you pass me a little card that's right on that chair? As a poster, I believe, of the movie. Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Bring it here. I just want to show it in front of the camera. Thank you. It's called Loopers, June 7 through 13 in Tinseltown. The theaters out there, headed towards Jacksonville. Now, Loopers, what is Loopers?
Looper's a term that caddies use. They call, when they caddy 18 holes, they call it a loop, an 18-hole loop where you go around and play. So that's where the term came from. Bill Murray, who's the narrator for this film, uses that term in the movie Caddyshack. Calls them loopers. So it's something that was a little bit of slang, but it was catchy. So we decided to use something of that nature to get people's attention.
Okay. Yeah. And the big house that came into this was Lionsgate, were the ones who approached you?
Lionsgate is a gentleman named Jim Packer, is executive producer, and he's a lifelong golfer and had a caddy and thought it would be cool to do a documentary on caddies. So he, out of the blue 5 years ago, I wrote a book on the caddies at Augusta National.
You're an author. You wrote a book. What's the title of that book?
Men on the Bag, the Caddies of Augusta National. So I wrote this book much like the story I was telling you earlier about finding who was behind the uniform. I wanted to find out the characters behind the caddy uniform. So that's where that came from. So Jim was stuck a little bit and called me out of the blue, a cold call, and left a voice message, and I'd had a call like this before, and my wife, who's in the audience, listened to it and looked him up and said, I think this is a guy you need to call back. So he worked for Lionsgate, and we hit it off, and next thing you know, they've gone to Scotland and Ireland and Pebble Beach and Augusta and Bandon Dunes and all over the United States to try to tell the story of how caddies came from being the guy who worked in the barn or worked in the kitchen to becoming a really professional today.
And if you had to say, if you had to define a caddy with one sentence, could you say, what could you say? Are they the golfer psychologist? I mean... everything. Psychologist, coach, mother,
just about anything, you know, because it's not important as much to tell the guy what club to hit or how the putt breaks, but it's trying to keep them on an even keel. You know, all of a sudden Jorge makes 2 bogeys and is about to break his club over his knee, and you got to encourage the guy and calm him. Whereas at the same time Jorge makes 2 birdies and he's about to jump out of his shoes, you got to say, hey, we got holes left to play, let's calm down.
Okay.
So there's a lot of psychology involved.
So he might, as they're walking to the next hole, he might bring a story about, did your daughter get that job that she applied for?
Exactly.
Was Johnny accepted in that school that he applied for? Just to try to, calm the waters. Chill, dude.
Exactly. How's your dog doing? How are your kids doing? You know, you see that movie, that kind of stuff.
So this film goes around the world where golf is played, following caddies and finding their stories?
Right. It's about the caddies you'd see on television. The PGA Championship's going on this week. There's a couple guys involved in it from that and players. But it also goes to some of the resorts where if you went and played golf and you'd have a caddy and how they interact with it. The gentleman who owns Bandon Dunes in Oregon says that the caddies are the #1 employee he's got. And you ask why, is because when people go play golf there, they play 36 holes a day. The person that's with them the most is the caddy. So therefore, the caddy's got to be happy. He's got to give a good impression of the place he is, and all of a sudden the caddy's really sort of the PR person for the whole place.
Wow. And how long do caddies stay with a golfer? Like Tiger, how long was his caddy with him and stuff like that?
It varies. It could be 10 years. It could be 1 week. You know, all of a sudden the guy starts playing bad. Just like anything in life, you're going to blame somebody else, and you're not going to blame yourself. So you're going to try to get another caddy to work for you.
Right. This caddy's jinx. Bring me another one.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Is there a caddy that's like really famous?
There's probably one that your viewers may be interested in. His name's Mike Cowan. His name's Fluff. Fluff is 7. He's got a really big mustache. Fluff is famous for being a big Grateful Dead fan. So he goes on the road and caddies for Jim Furyk, lives in Ponte Vedra Beach now. Okay. But he's used to caddy for Tiger too.
Wow.
So he's just a 70-year-old guy now in great physical shape, and just he's made a living out of caddying. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
I think this is his 50th year caddying.
So how do caddies make money? They get paid a salary, or do they get part of the prize? I mean, how does that work?
Sort of the rule of thumb is a caddy will get a salary per week. Maybe, and it's not much, maybe it's $1,000, $1,500 a week.
Okay.
But you also get a percentage of what your player does. So,
sweet.
For example, it's called 10, 7, and 5.
Okay.
You get 10% if you win. You get 7% if your player top 10s, finishes in the top 10, and you get 5% if he finishes top 25 or makes the cut.
That's not bad.
Okay, this week, the PGA Championship first prize is $1.9 million. Wow,
so that's $190,000.
Yeah, the caddy will walk away with $190,000.
It's good math. I did it all up here. Yeah, $190,000. Yes.
So so the caddy is really rooting for the player to do well.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's I didn't know that. That's because you see them, caddies look so relaxed, like they just came in their shorts and they'll only carry the bag for this guy, but they're like I always thought like when you watch movies with snipers, there's a guy next to him that's reading him what the wind is like, and so he takes that shot, and so the caddies are something like that, and giving suggestions and talking about it.
Exactly, and the best ones are the ones in that moment which is going to be decisive, is saying something.
Right.
This year, here's an example. This year at the Masters, Joe LaCava is Tiger's caddy. Final round, they're on the first tee, and they're standing there, it's nervous, you're on the first tee, and he looks at Tiger and says, "Be loose but intense." That's all he says. And he understood, and just gave him a little bit of wisdom, and it hit. It worked nicely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a happy caddy after getting that green jacket, Tiger.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No
Probably
doubt.
Tiger will buy him a drink too. Not bad,
Exactly.
not bad. Well, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think this movie or this documentary or docufilm, whatever you want to call it, will be amazing. And Bill Murray, we ran out of time. I would have loved to find out, because Bill Murray is a bit eccentric, and getting him to narrate this. I know we talked, and it was very, very funny to see how it all worked, and at the end it worked.
Well,
Because he doesn't like scripts.
Well, the thing about him in this film that I found is he's very serious about talking about being. He and his brothers grew up as caddies. You know, the Caddyshack
He was a
restaurant.
caddy too.
Caddyshack restaurant here in St. Augustine.
That's owned by him, for those who don't know.
Yeah. So he is very serious about this. He doesn't go into character or anything like that. He's very serious about it. So I thought that was pretty telling.
Well, thank you again, my friend.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ward
Thank you.
Clayton. We'll be seeing more of him, and we'll be back after these messages.
At St. Augustine Distillery, we're part of a new generation of American craft distillers. Family owned and operated, we are committed to making the best possible spirits using local agriculture. Our distillers make everything by hand, from mashing and blending to distilling and tasting each and every batch. We distill and bottle everything we sell, making sure that the spirits are just right before barreling and aging. Bottled by real people, we love showing our guests not only what we do, but why we do it. We're passionate about educating our guests to not only what goes into each bottle, but how to make the best possible cocktails. We love St. Augustine, and thanks to your purchases, we're able to give back to the community and help local organizations each and every day.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
St. Augustine Distillery, handmade with pride in the nation's oldest city.
Okay, people, we're back. We're back with Nick Carrera. And Nick, you are originally from?
Florida, South Florida.
South Florida.
Been up
Whereabouts in the
Boca Del Rey area.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a lovely area.
Yeah.
It's a lovely area. And how long have you been in St. Augustine?
14 years now.
14 years. Wow, you're like me. I'm going on year 14. So you've been here a while.
Yep.
And now your origins are?
My dad's from Argentina. My mother's American.
Argentina.
Argentina.
Wow, wow. And so a lot of good grilling.
There's
at home.
some, yeah. Kind of like having some meat.
Yes, Argentina and Brazil are known for
Well,
the
Argentina.
meat and the grilla.
Yeah. Brazil
Yeah.
tries. No, just kidding. I kid.
No hate mail from Brazilians.
That's right.
Please. Okay, thank you.
Churrasco's wonderful.
So now you have a little place. His place is on Riberia Street. It would be after the distillery and all that, and it's where the shrimp boats come in. One time, a lot of them came in there, and he has something, we call it in Puerto Rico, we call that un ranchón, and it's made out of wood and it has metal around it. Very simple, but the activities that you throw there are just amazing. And what Nick's is built is these Argentinian ovens or grills. They're really grills. Explain what they're like.
The Argentinian grills are a little unique in the sense that the grill surface is designed to channel the juices from the meats that you're grilling to a drip pan. So unlike normal grilling where the juices hit the coals and flare back up, causing, kind of ruining the flavor of the food or changing it, and you're wasting the juices, they're designed in a way to where now all the juices are collected in the drip pan, and you can actually baste and create from the drip pan itself. So it takes like a whole nother level of grilling. And then on top of it, you can raise and lower the grill surface. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot, but
No, it's fine.
you can raise and lower the grill surface. So now you're live fire grilling, producing your coals in a bracero, which is the fire basket, and you have this kind of it's sort of like a campfire type thing going on, but it's like really easy to control. So in grilling like that, basically how we describe it as experience grilling. It's just a completely unique way to be involved in every step of the process and not just kind of closing a lid and coming back and checking on it periodically, you really get to build up so many different flavors. So what we kind of did with our fabrication studio, we're very fortunate to have this really cool warehouse in downtown St. Augustine, like Jorge was saying, on the water. So we built grills outside, like to display.
How big are these? Tell them how big these are.
They're kind of range. We have different ones. They're pretty good sizes. We have the grills themselves are like normal sizes, but we do like our experienced grilling kitchens, outdoor kitchens, and we have like a fireplace one, so people can see how that grill works. And it's really just basically like a raised fireplace. So picture like an outdoor oven, kind of open face oven. We have more of the traditional drop-in kind, which would be like your gas grill kind of setup in a kitchen, summer kitchen. And then we have our freestanding mobile ones where wheel them around. But we wanted to be able to demonstrate the product and how it's unique and how you can really kind of just really get more involved in grilling. Because the main thing about the asado is we really want it to be a moment where you're actually enjoying that time with family and friends. It's not so much it's not a sprint. It's more of a marathon to actually enjoy all these moments that are connected in between. And so we thought the best way to kind of show that was to actually show that.
Right. And I was there for an event celebrating Argentinian Malbec, and all these grills were cooking incredible food. Also went to Michael Lugo, who was here, the chef, as a guest, had his birthday there. And they cooked a whole pig. It was beautiful, crispy and delicious, and they had oysters, another one, boiling oysters. It was all this food. You have like 5 or 6 of them, don't you?
Oh, the grills?
Yes.
Yeah, we keep adding to it, just kind of show. Yeah.
And then there was a night where they did an event, you paid, of course, and it was all about steaks in these grills. I mean, porterhouses. That was unbelievable. And then you brought your own bottle of wine. They would make a circle, write your name. The waiters would know who got the wine. But if you like meat, I like meat. And then another event you do is a monthly event where people are invited. They pay a ticket. It's called the monthly
Sunday Asado.
Sunday Asado.
What we do is, so based on what I do, I've been very fortunate. This town is really, really cool that there's some amazing chefs, just absolutely amazing chefs. And so what we've done is we've created the Sunday Asado to where we open it up to chefs to come in and basically take sort of what they do in the restaurant that, most cases is, behind the scenes, but in sort of like that backyard kind of thing, like if we just showed up into their backyard for a barbecue or an asado. And so we've been working on this for a while, and Michael Lugo and I, we were like really kind of pitching the idea, like thinking about it, and from what I wanted to create, and from his perspective, from a chef's community perspective, and it really started to kind of gel together. And a lot of chefs were expressing an interest, and so it kind of just began where we're like, well, okay, we have the space. Let's see what what everybody wants to do. And so one Sunday a month, and it's not any particular Sunday. It's whenever we can kind of coordinate. We bring in different chefs, and so as part of the community drive behind it is we feature and we showcase the chefs in their respective restaurants, and do it in a way to where the guests are able to actually really kind of interact throughout the whole process.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's like 3 hours of you eat so everything Jorge was saying about all the steak and all that. That's not me. That's these like chefs coming and doing their thing.
Yes. The chefs come and they experiment also. They try things with this form of fire, right? Using fire in a different way. And the stuff they were doing in this last one that I attended, the tickets are very affordable. You go there, you bring your own bottle, and the food is from asparagus wrapped in bacon to incredible stuff all these chefs throw out. Sebastian Sikora, who brought our spread today, was part of the last one. He was cooking an alligator.
Yeah, he was live fire, 2 of them. Which, a lot of people wouldn't associate for live fire grilling, to do a gator.
Right, and a gator.
Yeah, we had Chip from Caps on the Water, Chip Richards, and we had Matt Brown from Collage, Blackfly, and he was just kind of, an example. He was roasting bone marrow on our fireplace grill and poaching lobster tails in the drip pan. So
amazing.
It's mostly an exhibition to showcase the various talents And what we love about it is it's what's local, like everything, like farmers. We pick up a lot of fresh produce from like Ben Wells, Sheldon Morrison.
The Peruvian chef.
Marcel from Lama, yes,
wow.
Marcel.
All this stuff from the Amazon. He was cooking on the grill. And it's very nice. If you go to urbanasado.com,
urbanasado.com.
you could see when the events are, the tickets, they sell out really fast. And if you like food, definitely. And I thank you so much.
I appreciate it,
thank
man.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Creative Chef. And we'll be back after these messages.
My background is French culinary, so we definitely have a European style to what we do. But I think also we're lucky with what we get around here as far as produce, so we're very spoiled with that kind of thing. Being able to get our vegetables delivered weekly, go out to the farm and pick up our cheese, things like that. So we're very influenced by our environment. Sourcing the way that we do seasonally is definitely something that keeps us creative. It keeps us doing something different every day. And especially now that we've started opening for dinner, it's really kind of going out there and meeting the guy at the dairy farm, meeting the guy that grows our cauliflower. Those are the kind of things that I think make it exceptional.
Back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we're back with Jessica Clark. And wow, I'm so happy you make it to the show.
Oh, thanks.
It's been so hard trying to coordinate because we're taping this, of course, not during our session because conflict of scheduling.
Yes.
But I'm so glad that you wanted to be part of the show and let us find out who you are. Because that's what we do in this show is to let people know who the guests are. So
well, thanks for having me.
Well, it's great. So now your real name is Jessica Clark?
It is my real name. Yes, indeed.
No middle name?
Well, I have a middle name,
okay,
but I use Jessica Clark.
Yeah,
I mean, Riddell is my middle name, but I go by Jessica
all right.
Clark.
Now, you were born where?
I was born in Argentina, Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires, all those tango freaks, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Argentina. Wow, that you know, I never would have guessed that. I know your father, and we've talked many times. And
I look pretty American.
Well, yes. But you know, still born in Buenos. How do you feel being born in Buenos Aires?
It's just a little neat bit of mystique.
Are people all surprised when you say something?
Oh, they are.
Yeah. Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
That's an exotic city.
Yeah.
Wow. So now you came to the. How old were you when you came to the States?
I was young, 10 months old. So I don't remember a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But my parents were missionaries there.
Okay.
So that's why we were there, and they had been there for about 4 years or so, and then it was time for them to leave. So
the political thing got a little heavy.
It was very political,
Yeah.
and the military was pretty much in power, and this was in the 70s, and so.
Jorge Davila, Pinochet, there was a lot of stuff going on.
Perón, and so my mom was ready, I think.
Yeah.
She had a little baby, and,
I know.
And so this was her first, and so she was ready to be home.
People don't realize how cheap life is in some of these countries when things get nasty.
Yeah.
So now you come to the States, and where do your parents come to? When they hear you're a little baby, and you come to where?
Virginia.
Virginia.
Well, they first came to Jacksonville. That's where Dad's parents lived.
Okay.
And so my first step on the ground, if you will, was in the U.S. was in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, and here I am. But then we pretty much landed in Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah, where Dad had a church.
Now, when you think of your childhood, where do you see your childhood?
Tampa.
Tampa.
Yeah, because we moved to Tampa when I was about 6, and so then I grew up.
High school, junior high, that whole
elementary
thing?
school.
Yeah.
So that was all in Tampa.
Now, when you finished high school, did you know you wanted to be a journalist?
I thought I did, but I had a scholarship for theater to FSU.
Oh wow!
And so that was the plan. And then Dad one day just said, well, so what if this theater thing doesn't work out? What's going to be your plan B? And I just kind of out of nowhere said, I think I'd like to be a reporter. I hadn't headed that direction at all. And so I visited the University of Florida. They had great TV programs and radio programs. And so I just made a change of mind in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it really you were hooked kind of.
Oh, yeah.
By the visuals.
Yeah, right.
By what you
and
saw
the
around you.
idea of being able to tell stories and doing all that. I grew up on NPR. Listening to NPR.
Yeah.
So I knew I liked listening to stories, and I liked listening to news, but it took really that push of, well, so what if one thing doesn't work? What will you do?
Right.
So that's what changed.
And I don't mind being the storyteller instead of
the
listener. Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love it.
So now you come out of. So you did so now your major was journalism.
It was, yeah. Broadcasting.
Broadcasting.
Yeah.
Did you have a minor in anything?
I asked if I could create my own minor, which was agricultural and environmental sciences. And I just thought that I would become an environmental reporter, and every TV station out there would want an environmental reporter, and I was so wrong. Nobody wanted an environmental reporter. They just wanted a general assignment reporter who could go do anything.
An environmental? What's that? We'll send you up to check the ozone layer or something. So you were kind of, did you kind of feel that as you were ending that minor in environmental that, I think there's not going to be that much of a welcoming for that.
A desire, a
demand.
Not while I was studying.
Right.
I thought I was brilliant for going that avenue, but no, I didn't figure that out until I was working
That
in TV.
reminds me of the two girls who decided to learn Chinese, and everyone mocked them. They were good friends. And then once they felt their Chinese they went to China before the boom and made all the connections, and they became billionaires, both of them.
Oh, well,
because
good
they
for
became
them.
It's not like that, and everyone said, ha, 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 and then, ha, 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 you.
Yeah, that's great. That didn't happen for me.
I'm connecting all these. But no, that was interesting. I thought that was, wow, these girls really were.
Good for them.
So do you remember when you were first hired, and who hired you first?
Oh, yeah. For on air, and not associated with the TV stations at school, the radio stations at school. So it was
your first paid gig. Like
my first paid on air was Dothan, Alabama. Morning anchor for Dothan, Alabama, a TV station there. It was teeny tiny. It was a teeny tiny.
Do you have
market.
to get up really early for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I did.
Like 4 in the morning?
And I loved it.
Really?
At that time of my life, I was so glad to have a job.
Right,
right.
Right.
And it was an on-air job, so I was pleased.
Were you in any special genre to say you're covering traffic or you're covering domestic violence or whatever?
No, it was just
very general.
Yeah,
probably because it was a small station, so you had to do many things, which I think is good.
Yeah, sometimes I would fill in on the noon, and but it was a really good starting place. It was small, and I encourage folks who are looking into TV or radio. It's okay to start small because there you can make some mistakes. They're not as noticed as if you're in a larger place, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Especially now there are comedians who love to go through the news and pick out the errors that people. They're very funny. Some of them are hilarious.
And it is funny stuff, but I always kind of.
I don't want to be the joke.
No, I don't want to be that one.
Yeah. No, that's true. But so now, then, what was your step up from that?
Fort Myers, Florida, weekend anchor.
So while you were doing that, were you applying for other places, for bigger markets?
So yeah, about 6 months before your contract ends, you start sending out resume tapes. And
Fort Myers,
Florida.
The calling came from there.
Was the next one, yeah.
Was that? Did you like it?
I did like it. I liked being back in Florida, close to family who was in Tampa.
Right.
So that was great.
Okay.
But it, so when I'm 24-ish, around that time, and it was great to be there, but I still hadn't felt like I was in my spot yet.
Right.
Yeah.
You still
I'm still trying to.
I don't have my theater and my play.
Yeah.
I'm acting for others, but when is my thing? So you've been here in the Jack since 2005, am I correct?
2005.
Wow. You also have 2 Emmys under your belt. 3. See, that's a great,
I don't want to brag.
No, but that's a great mistake to do, because if I was to, you have 4, you say, no, only 3. This is better, you have 2.
Right.
I have 3, buddy. That's a great, from my side, that's great. So how does that feel? How do they give you an Emmy? Do they send you a letter? Does your boss call you?
There's a process. You're selected from your station to be entered into the Emmy Awards.
Okay.
And then Emmys,
so
the
they
Academy.
Think they think what you did is worthy of an
Emmy.
So they
yes, right. So
like
they'll
soldiers
put
in the battlefield. We're going to put you for a medal.
And so it is the National Academy of Arts and Sciences. So I mean it is what you see on TV as the Emmys, but it's just on a smaller scale for local news.
Right.
And then the Academy goes through all the entries and will select who will be given an Emmy.
Wow.
But you're notified if you've been nominated.
Okay.
And so then you go to the banquet and the show, and it is all, I guess it's taped and online.
Wow.
And then once there, it is a big presentation. If you get it, you know, the room's full of people who aren't getting anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when people say, it was just an honor to be nominated. It truly is. It truly is.
Yeah, but it's...
I mean, of course you want the Emmy.
Yeah, exactly.
But it truly is to be sitting in that room. You're not going to be sitting in that room unless you've been nominated.
Right.
And so you realize there's not a whole lot of people in here. Maybe 1,000.
You're a select few that came to this level.
So it truly is an honor to be nominated.
Wow. Do you remember what they were for?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
the first one was.
Are these like small documentaries that you do?
One was a documentary.
Okay.
The one was one story of about 3 minutes long.
Okay.
About a pilot who went down into the ocean. He was with the Navy in Jacksonville, crash landed, and
in the water.
Divers found his plane decades later and brought him to the site where his plane had gone down. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But so I was on the boat with him when divers took him to the place where he had crashed. Wow. So that was, I mean, the story told itself. You know, it's just a fantastic story.
There are stories that have their own energy.
And the second one was for the 450th documentary. It was a 30-minute documentary.
Oh, wow.
Highlighting different parts of St. Augustine's history over 450 years. And that one I was so especially thankful for. I mean, so many people made that possible.
Yeah, but it's because you two are really turned on by archaeology and the history, and that's all part of that same enchilada.
Well, there's a passion for it, And the third one was about archaeology, just a series of stories about archaeology.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Now, you were helping, or you were one of the volunteers helping when they found the bodies here in St. Augustine.
Right, yeah.
How old were those bodies? 500 years old?
Well, no, probably probably 500-ish years old, but I mean, they go back to the very early days of St. Augustine. So we're looking at like 1572 to, I think, I'm going to get about 100 years, so a 100-year timeline, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
that window.
all those numbers, you know, but yeah, so some of the earliest people who may have even come over on the first ships to found St. Augustine. Isn't that amazing?
I mean,
I know that. Yeah.
So here you're because archaeology, I call it brushing slowly for a very long time.
Yeah.
Don't want to hurt anything. Is there a ring? Is there something?
You know what you want to do when you're down in the hole digging?
What?
You want to just rip the stuff out. You're like, oh my gosh, look at this, and you just want to rip it. You know, a teapot or a button or whatever, and you have to just brush and let it be exposed and take pictures.
I know.
I just want to.
I know. Like,
you can't.
Let's get to it, please.
Yeah.
And so, how many bodies were in there? Probably.
It's hard to say because some of them were on top of each other, and and moved around.
Was it
so
like a mass
more
grave
than
then?
20.
So
more
it was
than
like
20.
a masquerade,
well,
kinda?
at that time, in colonial, in Spanish colonies, the bodies were buried underneath the church.
Oh, okay.
And when a person died, they would bury that person underneath the church, and if there was not a lot of space, they would just kind of move one body over and put the other body in. I mean, truly.
Sardine cans.
Yeah,
under there.
so you can,
Wow.
you know, we'd have a leg up near the head, and you're trying to figure out who's who.
Yeah.
And with respect. I mean, the team worked with the greatest respect.
Were they
for
able
what
to
was
say
going on.
if there were women, men,
Yeah.
Europeans,
yes.
Africans, natives, or
the
anything?
first skeleton found was determined to be an African man.
Okay.
And the next person found was determined to be a European woman. And then, you know, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, wow.
It's just amazing.
I mean, yeah, the energy. I've always been psychic as a child, so I wonder what, you know, what would I feel there? You know, would I, you know, I feel cold or what? So, so what do you see in the future? You're so popular. You're like a voice because you've been doing it now for I think you're one of the reporters that's been on that job for the longest. So you become like your own small institution. You know what I'm saying? People
well, that's very nice.
Well, look at Walter Cronkite. When I think of someone who was there forever and was the voice of a nation, you know. In your case, you're of a very large area of America, but you know there's a certain honor and distinction to have that position, you know, and so you know when
I'm glad you said that. I do feel privileged.
Yeah,
to do what I do.
You are, and people see you as someone serious. You have the information, you have the education, you have the class to give that news. And so, yeah, you become someone very important.
Well,
very important.
Gosh, thank you.
You're on the St. Augustine Tonight Show.
Well,
I mean, come on now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Sometimes the media isn't always that well received, so it's nice to hear the compliment. Thank you.
It's well, yeah, I feel now, you know, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
Let's not even go to that subject. But so, what do you see for the future for yourself? If someone offered you a national show. Like
it would depend on the show,
you know?
Because I love where I am. You know, I thought I'd be here as another stepping stone for 2 or 3 years for the contract length, and then go to the next spot.
Right.
And
because that's so much typical of people in that industry.
That's what the industry is.
Yes.
But then I signed another contract to be here, and then I signed another contract to be here, and then I signed another,
But it also gives you clout. Once you've been there for a while. You've proven yourself. You have the awards. People see your stuff. You know, you tend to have a certain respect that when you speak, people listen to you.
Well,
then if you're just one who just came in through the door, it's harder.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think what I've seen happen over time is just people know who I am. And so I knocked on somebody's door the other day. I didn't know who this lady was, but she said, "Oh yes, come inside." You know, as a reporter, a lot of times you're just begging somebody to talk to you.
Right.
But
just now.
Because she had seen me for years,
yes.
She asked me to come inside her house so we could talk, and so that was really nice. What do I see in the future? I don't know. I don't see myself. It's hard to say.
Yeah, don't say it now, because they'll run this. You said.
I know.
Now you're doing this.
I will say I love being here. I love being here.
Okay.
And I'm so thankful to be in the spot I am. And would I ever leave? It's hard to say. It would have to be the right job, doing the right thing, in the right place.
Something that you feel it here,
yes.
here, and here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there would have to be a lot of rights for me to go. And quite frankly, there are a lot of rights right now for me here.
That's good. Well, I thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you.
I wish we had hours, but we have another guest. But I'm thrilled that at least we made it this way, even if it's taped.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's give her a hand, everybody. We'll be back.
My name's Theo Garrett. I'm the owner of Garrett Brothers. My rule of thumb is I don't take anything in this store that I wouldn't have in my own home. We look for unique pieces, things you can't find anywhere around. St. Augustine, and we pride ourselves on that. We have more than furniture. We have 1967 Vespa. We have anything that you can think of that would be fun and exciting. You're going to find it here. Sculptures, art pieces. We have a wonderful selection of art. I hear it's like a museum. That's the most common comment that I hear. Love for you to come and see me here, and we'll make you happy.
It's Lee Weaver. As you know, he's an actor. He's an actor and a playwright. And as you know, he works together with his wife, Nanette, who's amazing. She's really the talent in this duo. And he tackles a lot of religious intolerance, homelessness, race relations, climate change, the treatment of veterans. You've seen so many of his plays, and there's so many people who leave these plays with tears in their eyes. It's amazing what he does. I couldn't say greater things about. As someone in a background in acting, I admire him. I'm a big fan. This fall he has a new play called The Attic that's going to deal with Alzheimer's, which is an epidemic in our society today. And this week, Sunday, at 2 p.m. at the Corazon, he's going to do The Shooter on gun violence in America. This is an incredible, incredible piece of work, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it might be heavy, it might be serious, it might have a little comedy, but tonight we're going to make you laugh with him, because he could be very, very funny when he's not dealing with social issues. So, with no more ado, I want to bring Mr. Lee Weaver. It's on.
Oh my, thank you, Jorge. I don't really know what I'm doing here. I write serious dramas, you know, and I'm not used to making people laugh, but Jorge knows that I do a couple of comedy shows a year in places where nobody might see me, and he said, why don't you do some here? And I said, all right, I don't really know where to begin. This isn't my cup of tea. All I know for sure is that I'm getting old, and things have changed. I'm going to be 83, and well, please, not for another 8 years. Hold your applause. I'm really 60-15. I can't bring myself to say 75, but that's what I am, and so it's going on. And again, I don't know where do I have to kind of go back to the beginning, not way back, but I'll tell you, I went to college in Michigan, and whenever I tell anybody that I went to college in Michigan, they say, oh, Ann Arbor, and I have to say, no, Michigan State University, but I did spend a night in the Ann Arbor jail one night, and so I feel kind of like alumni of the Blue and the Maize. I'll tell you this about Michigan State. It's a fine school. When I went there, they had 43,000 students, and it just sucked me right up after coming out of a very small town in western New York. And I flunked out after my sophomore year. A good part of the reason for that failure was that I had a double major, beer and poker. And my grades just plummeted, and I remember when the letter came from MSU saying that I couldn't go back. I didn't know how to tell my mother and father, but I said, I'm going to drive out there. I lived in Western New York. I'm going to go out there to Michigan, and I'll get my way back in, because I was always glib. I was very persuasive. That was the forte of my activity all through life, was you can sell it. And so I went back, and I was in the dean's office, and I said, please, you got to let me stay. I don't know. I can't flunk out of school. And he said, well, Mr. Weaver, and he opened up a brochure, and it says here, you only went to 17 classes your last semester, and they were opening days, midterms, and finals. And so he said, you're not coming back. You're not coming back. You said you can come back in a year, but you need to determine whether or not you're really college material. We see from your test scores you ought to be able to do it, but you're out for a year. So I was out for a year, and I had to work, and I got a job on a factory line, and that was awful. And then right after that June, I was a lifeguard. I did that for 3 summers, so I had that for an immediate employment. But then I got a job as a game warden, and well, it was an interesting job. I got assigned to find out about a fella who was catching more fish than any man in that lake over there, probably more than was legal, and you got to go over there and find out about him. So I went over to the lake, and I went to the bait shop, and I said, I hear there's a fella fishing here in your lake that just catches more fish than anybody. And I didn't tell him I was a game warden. I'd like to meet him and see what his technique is. He said, oh yeah, right down there on that dock, you see that boat tied up at the end, that rowboat, that's his. You wait down there, he'll come along. And sure enough, I was sitting there, and this fella come walking down the dock. He was carrying a tackle box and a net, no pole. Figure that's in the boat, And so when he approached, I said, are you the guy that catches all the fish? Nobody can believe how many you take out. He said, yeah, I do pretty good. Can I go out with you? I didn't tell him I was a game warden. I said, can I go out with you? And he said, sure, come on, get in the boat. And he pulled us out into the deep water. And then while we were sitting there, he put the oars back in the boat. He opened up his tackle box and took out a stick of dynamite. Boom! And the fish all just floated up to the top. He took out his net and picked them all up. And just like that, he had about 100 fish in the boat. And I just went berserk. I took out my tin. I said, I'm a game warden, and I'm taking you, and that's illegal. You can't go fishing like that. That's illegal. He opened up his tackle box. He took out another stick of dynamite, and he lit it. And he handed it to me. He said, now you just going to sit there or you going to fish? So, well, that didn't really happen. But after that, then I got a job as a traveling salesman. That's true. I sold World Book Encyclopedia. That's way back, when there wasn't that much to put in those World Books. We're going back, and I did very well. I averaged a sale a day of a set of World Books. Now, I only did it for 1 day, but it was a good day. And I was coming back. This is upstate New York, and I got off the thruway, and I was on some back country roads, and so the car didn't sound right, when something's going wrong. And I'm not very mechanically minded, but I stopped the car out in the country. I'd stayed off of the highway, and I walked around the car, and I kicked the tire. I don't know why you do that, but that's what you see people doing. And I went to the back of the car, and I got down on my hands and knees, and I looked under there, and while I was looking there, I heard a voice say, "My trip to Paris was remarkable." And I stood up and I looked up. There wasn't a soul around, nobody. Just a horse there standing by the fence, chewing grass, just like that. And I thought, well, I'm losing it here, but I got to get out of here. There's nobody around. And so I opened up the hood, and again, I don't know what I'm looking under there for. I figured I could see something obvious, like a cable was off of the battery or something, but nothing looked good, and I had my head way down in there, and I heard that same voice say, "Yep, Paris was wonderful, but it wasn't as great as that safari trip to Africa." And I got back out again, and I looked all, nobody there, just that same horse. I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on? So this time I slid underneath the motor mount on my back to look up at the engine, and I hear that voice start to say, "Yep, my trip to Paris was remarkable. The Eiffel Tower is what I liked the most, but that African safari, I want to tell you." And I crawled out and I looked at that horse, and he looked at me and he said to me, "But when I walked on the Great Wall of China, that's the best vacation." see a farmhouse up on a hill. And I went running up there just as fast as I could, and I banged on the door, you know, and a fella come to the door, and I took out my wallet, and I said, that horse down there, I want to buy him. Name your price, I'll give you whatever you want. And the old farmer said to me, now don't you go paying no never mind to that horse down there, young feller. Why, he ain't been to half the places he talks about. Well, that that didn't help him either. Oh, I'm getting the sign. I've either got to cut my throat or I've got to wrap it up. All right, I've got more. I'll tell you more later. I'll just sing a song. Take me 30 seconds. Is that all right? Let me see. I was going to work. I had some good stories too next time. The song goes, we got married on Friday. Everyone said it was my day. Then they traveled on home and left us alone, side by side. We got ready for bed then. I nearly dropped dead when her teeth and her hair she placed on the chair, side by side. Well, I nearly fainted when her glass eye she let fall. First an arm and then a leg, she placed them both on the chair by the wall. Well, I was near broken-hearted. From most of my wife I'd been parted. So I slept on the chair. There was more of her there. All together now. Side by side. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Thank you. Thank you. I got another 10 minutes next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I have a mic on. Thank you. That's Lee Weaver. We'll be back after these messages with John from Raisin Cake. Oh, man, my belly hurts. I've been laughing.
We opened up last year in January. Everything from the German farmer bread, the Schwarzwälder Flosserbrot. We have Jewish roots as well on my mother's side. So we do challah every Friday. That's available.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with the man behind the Raisin Cake Orchestra. Well, I'm so happy you're on this show. I just loved you when I saw you guys for the first time, and you were so gracious to come to the show. So your full name is?
The Raisin Cake Orchestra.
And your name?
My name is John Chapman.
Okay, John, that's your full name in the birth certificate?
Well, Matthew's in between the John and the Chapman. So.
And the Raisin Cake Orchestra, is that the name on the birth certificate?
No, that's just the name on the business card.
Now, why did you call it the Raisin Cake Orchestra?
We started this group back in 2014, about 5 years ago, and we had just started playing, and you know how people like to go on social media and make their opinions about things, and some other musicians that we knew were talking about something related to politics and stuff. And one of them had made a comment and said, oh, you know, this is what I think about this issue, and I dare anybody to come in here and debate me. So another musician that we knew came on and said, yeah, watch all these raisin cakes come in here and try to prove you wrong. And then I kind of stuck with me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. So about a week later, we were performing up in San Marco in Jacksonville, and at the end of the gig, somebody came up to us and said, well, we really enjoyed your music. What's the name of the group? So I leaned over and I said, this is the Raisin Cake Orchestra.
Oh, wow. So, that's a funny story. And now, You're originally from where?
Gainesville, Florida.
So you're in Florida.
Oh yeah. Yeah, born and bred.
Florida. Wow. Have you spent most of your life here?
Yeah, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for a period after I graduated from college, but...
Did you like Atlanta?
I did, but I like Florida more, so...
Well, yeah, you came where you felt comfortable.
Absolutely.
Now, when you were young in school, were you attracted towards music?
Yeah, I studied piano. I studied classical piano for several years.
Wow.
And then I kind of got a little burnt out on it and got more into sports for a little while, but when I got into college, I was rooming with all these guys that had been in their high school rock bands.
Oh.
And so we had a drummer, we had a vocalist, we had a guitar player, but we didn't have a bass player, so that's where I picked it up.
Oh, wow. So that was the first time you picked up a bass?
At that time, yeah.
And the first time you went back to music after the piano?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And how did you find the bass? Was it refreshing? Was it difficult? Was it something you did because they needed you?
No, it was great. I knew music from having studied piano and stuff, but my mom had raised me on Motown, Aretha Franklin and Temptations, the Four Tops, and I was a big fan of James Jamerson's bass playing from way back, when I was a kid and stuff, and it just seemed like any type of pop music that I was into always had that really solid bass. So, just
Now, did you have any musicians, your dad and your family? Did you have it? Yeah.
My father's a fantastic guitar player and a great singer. He still sings in his church choir. And my great-grandfather was a champion bluegrass fiddler.
I love bluegrass.
We actually still have his fiddle. We're going to get it appraised and see how much it's worth. It's about 160 years old.
Now, you told me a funny story of he created an effect.
Right.
With that fiddle.
He won the Great Smoky Mountain Bluegrass Fiddling Contest back in the late 1800s, and his trick was to take a rattlesnake tail, a rattle, and he affixed it to the inside of the fiddle so that he could do sound effects that the other fiddlers weren't doing on the day.
Like, how does he do that?
Right. Well, it's a big part of that music. They like to make animal sounds and to sound like birds and different types of animal calls when they play the fiddle. So he was able to throw something in there that they didn't.
And it's also a storytelling kind of music.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really, some of it is very heartbreaking. So, wow. So that it's. Have you ever jammed with your dad?
Oh yeah, I grew up. He bought me this little Roy Rogers guitar. So it had a picture of Roy Rogers and Trigger on it, and then he was a big fan of like all these. Guitar player, singer-songwriters like Jim Croce and Glenn Campbell back in the 70s, and so he'd be jamming all that stuff, and I'd play along with him and stuff.
So now you do classical, you feel a little burned out, like, I'm done with this for now. And later you come to bass. What kind of music are you playing in college with the bass?
Those guys, they were into like, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, kind of blues-based jam rock type stuff, which is, what college guys want to do. So played a lot of that.
And so how did you gravitate then towards this kind of music, which is amazing?
Well, the more you invest yourself in an art form, the more you investigate it and you start figuring out, why you like the things that you like, and you start looking at how different people approach the instrument, and if you're really serious about it, eventually you're going to gravitate, as an American musician particularly, towards jazz, where you're going to have musicians, pursuing their instruments at the highest possible level and really bringing in everything they can from American music. So I started to hear things, that started drawing me into particular types of jazz and really appreciating the high level of skill that a lot of great jazz bass players had. And so you listen to more and more, and the next thing you know, you've bought about 500 albums, and you've got a huge bill that you got to pay.
Right. Yeah, no, I love the Miles Davis, Coltrane, Herbie Hancock. I mean, the Charlie Parker, Dexter Gordon. I mean, I don't think I go a week without listening to jazz at some point. And now I'm taking these long walks to lose weight and keep my heart because I'm getting older. And jazz is so relaxing. And so do you feel you have a spiritual connection with the music?
Oh, you have to, in order to be able to do it. There has to be something that is speaking to you from the music, and then something that you want to give back as well. And you have to find the time to invest in it to be able to do it at any sort of competent level. And so there has to be that really strong spiritual connection that goes along with your physical investment of your body and your intellectual investigation of the music as well.
Because you play the bass, and you know, I love listening to Curtis Mayfield and and all that funk of that time. The bass is so predominant, you know. And sometimes the song starts with the bass just
absolutely.
out in your
Pusher
face.
Man, something like
yeah,
that.
Pusher Man, for instance. And it's also, it tells us, he told stories. That's what I found amazing of Curtis Mayfield. So now when you start in that whole jazz genre and you start saying, well, this is where I'm going, what do you think was the biggest challenge for you?
Really just starting to understand why the great players sounded so good. You know, something like a double bass is a very different animal from electric bass. And I mean, you got to investigate why electric bass players sound so good. What's their rig, you know, and what's their technique? And it's even more important if you start looking at double bass, how do people, you know, tell their stories through that instrument? And there's a lot that you have to understand about the physical aspect of the relationship between you and your instrument, and then also what are these guys thinking about when they do their storytelling?
Right, right. Well, you know, I thank you so much for coming on the show. What I found amazing of you when we did our pre-interview was you were sort of like an encyclopedia. We talked about so many things, so many musicians, so many little anecdotes, stories. It was at a Mexican restaurant, and we had Mexican music through this whole interview, and it was amazing, and I thank you so much. I admire what you do, and that trumpet player is a killer too, man.
He is.
Yes.
He is for sure.
Let's give him a hand. So, would you play something for us?
We'd love to.
Thank you so much.
Jorge.
And we're going to listen to Raisin Cake now. Oh yeah, get ready. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for being in the show. I know it's late. It's 8:30. But I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Jessica Clark, who was so nice to take out of her schedule. I want to thank Ward Clayton. Good luck. That's a wonderful, wonderful film. Nick Carrera had to leave early. He does have a family and children. And I want to thank Lee Weaver, who was amazing. I want to thank the Film Society, who actually, without them, we could not have projected that for you. They came in like commandos and did great work. Let's give them a hand. And I want to thank the Raisin Cake Orchestra. These geniuses are amazing. We have another great show next week. We have 2 more shows for this season, and hope to see you all. And I'm going to leave you with the Raisin Cake Orchestra. Thank you once again.
Yeah.